So most of us have worked on problems before, but why do you think we maybe a few months later or even a year later we go back to the same problem all over again? This is maybe do a few things, right? Maybe we did not identify the problems properly. We did not come up with the proper root cause. Our decisions were not based on data. It was based on maybe tribal knowledge. We didn't maybe even do the proper corrective actions. We did not put proper root causes in place. We did not train everyone, and we did not see it through. So all those things really are going to be covered in A3 problem solvings. So what is an A3? What does it really mean? An A3 is a simple one page format problem solving methodology that is based on the lean principles and the Toyota production systems. It makes communicating ideas simple and eliminates the need for time-consuming PowerPoint presentations, right? It follows the PDCA concept, which is the plan, do, check, and act, where you identify, define, study current situations for analysis, propose actions, and monitor results. In short, it is a tool used to identify problems and propose solutions summarized in one page. It is also a document, right? It is a living document that you could continuously update, but during the problem solving time and not afterwards. It is highly visual because it uses graphs, it uses charts, drawings, etc. As much as possible, limit the verbiage or just use graphics. The format nor the specific sections are not set in stone, which is a good thing. You could always move things around. So what is the mindset behind the A3 system, right? There's 7 elements, which is it's a logical thinking process, right? Now, because you have to identify the problems properly, you present information in a not judgmental way. The reason being is you use the right data. You achieve results and processes using critical information and visualize those ones. You have data, now we have to visualize that data. We align the efforts to the objectives of the company and being consistent throughout the organization. If we use it in one area, let's use it in other areas too. And it's a really good systems approach to problem solving. As I mentioned before, it was based on the PDCA cycle. Planning part, which is, again, the most important part, and most of the time it's 50% of what we spend time on. Planning is critical because that's what you know. If you don't plan properly, then success is minimal, or maybe chances of success are not there. So first thing that we do on the planning part is identify the problem. Then we explore it. What is the real root cause? Because we need to do that just so we don't apply band-aids to the problems. Then we consider potential solutions based on what we've analyzed. We hypothesize those ones. We test those solutions. Are those really working or not? So doing is, okay, yes, we came up with these critical few solutions that we want to implement, and let's do those ones. We check, we measure the results. Are we making improvements or are we not? If not, then we act on it. So the planning is really the longest phase of going through an improvement, right? This time spent on planning is at least 50% of the total time and sometimes even more. So that's an example of an A3 report, which you have at the top. You have the problem, the team, which we're going to go through one by one later on. We need the background. What do we need to work, or why do we need to work on this? Why is it really important? What's the current state? What's our problem definition? What is the gap between ideal situation and the current situation? What is our target objectives? What do we want to see? What is our desired outcome? Then we use, when we root cause analysis, we use a fishbone diagram, which is also called a cause and effects matrix, which again uses the 6 M's, the 6 M's being measurements, methods, the machines, Mother Nature, manpower, method that could contribute to the problem. Or we could use 5 Whys, which is the most widely used root cause analysis method. But make sure we use data. If we have data, at least we could create graphs like Pareto charts, you have scatter diagrams, and so on. Then you have your future states and your countermeasures. You have the impact of those countermeasures. Are we getting a positive trend? Are we getting a negative trend? And then we follow up. Actions still required. What do we do? Are there any lessons learned? Can we apply this to other cells, other departments? Right? The importance of this one is visual displays, right? Which has been proven over and over again to be quickly absorbed and understood by everybody. Easily understood by everybody. So some benefits of an A3. It creates consistency. Again, if everyone is using it, it's consistent throughout the whole organization, and we try to solve problems consistently. It builds critical thinking. If you look at actual data, then builds critical thinking on what the real issues are. It forces a view of the problems and solutions. It's collaborative because when you do this, you have to do this in a team environment, not by yourself. And it's a thorough root cause analysis that reduces the risk of the temporary band-aid solutions that most of the time we put in place. That's why that problems occurs over and over again. Some other benefits: it drives accountability and reduces the risk of it's everyone's problems. Why do we say it's everyone's problem? Most of the time, we just point fingers at each other, right? But this one, if someone has the ownership of implementing that solution, it drives accountability. It assimilates data-driven decisions. Again, we need to make decisions based on data only. If we don't have data, let's collect the data and confirm it. It's fairness and accountability. Transparency, it's visual, and develops deep organizational capabilities. So some roles and responsibilities: you should have the owner themselves, which is the individual that is accountable for that issue. They have the authority to engage anyone needed. Again, as a team, there's always going to be a team needed, and the responsibility to engage all those relevant parties. The coach is the person teaching the owner the problem solving process. Typically, but not all the time, it is the owner's direct supervisor. It could be somebody else. Okay, let's go look at the A3 process. You'll have the team section. That is the title of the A3. What is our area of focus, right? For example, reducing overall costs or reducing overall scrap, increasing on-time delivery, improving on-time delivery. Let's avoid judging and concluding, or maybe offering solutions. If we know the solution is, why not just do it, right? Because the reason why we're doing problem solving is because we don't know what the solution is. And again, the focus should just be on the problem that's being observed. Describing this problem again properly is the key point in this. The background section, which includes the statement itself. What is the problem? Please, when we do that on the background section, do not offer any solution, right? So what's the background? Is it related to the company goals? What's the point in doing something that's not related to the overall company's goals? How did we discover it? How long has it been a problem? Is it a month, a year? How long has it been ongoing? What evidence demonstrates that there is a problem? Do we have the data to prove that there is a problem? So what about the degrees of variation, that it changes every month? Is it 50% this month? Is it 60% the following month? Or is it 90% the last few months? So we need to have a look at that. Does it change? What's the variation? And again, selling it to, again, your managers, to people that will be approving this, right? Why do we need to make that improvement? Let's create a sense of urgency, right? So when presenting this, the owner, again, needs to be aware of the audience itself, especially when you're trying to sell it, especially if you're going to be spending time and resources on the project. And make sure we need to tie it to the company's goals, which is really critical in here. So when we're writing a current statement or a problem statement, which is really, in this case, it's the most important one. To quote Charles Kettering of General Motors, he said, "A problem well defined is a problem half solved." So the current condition, that's the reason why the current condition section, which again, where you create, where you're where you're saying what the real problem is, right? Let's outline the situation in a simple way, or just so we don't confuse anybody. Let's provide a visual overview of what is going on. Let's highlight key factors in the current state. Do we have data to prove it? If not, let's collect the data. And let's avoid suggesting solutions or, again, judging. So problem statement is, what is the opportunity? What is wrong with what we're doing here? What is the problem? What is wrong with it? What is the pain to the customer? Again, the customer is not just the end user. The next in line is your customer. Your manager is your customer. The owners are your customer. So which part of that pain is the team addressing? Again, it's just going to be a focus one. Let's use data to back up that statement. If not, again, let's collect more. So a good statement should say what is going on, when did it happen, how long is it going on, right? Where is it happening? Who is being affected by it, which department, and what is the financial impact. A good statement does not bias. Again, bias the team by, again, there's a potential solution, this is the solution. That's not a good statement if we are biased towards that. So some documentations that we need, in most cases, we need to observe. We need to do a Gemba walk. We need to go where it's happening, right? How do we know it's really happening if we don't observe it? What are the performance data? What is it currently doing at the moment? Let's maybe even do some value stream mapping or process mapping or diagrams. Let's take some photos. Let's do some interviews. Talk to the people involved. and let's take some samples. So what's the scope? Again, this is another critical part of A3. We need to have boundaries, right? Or the focus will be lost. We should start and have a start and end points in the process of what we're going to be improving. Do we have data? What data? Right? What information do we need to collect? What areas are inside and outside of the work team? Right? What areas of focus do we want to focus on, and what areas do we not focus on? What specific parts of the process, and what are the outside boundaries? When establishing goals, let's make sure we have measurable goals when possible. If we're improving delivery, for example, if we're at 60% right now, if we change it to 61, 62, or 70%, can we measure that? Let's consider how we're going to be collecting that data. Is it even the right data, or are we even collecting the right data? So let's begin planning for, again, the impact session, which is, again, what will be the effect of all these improvements? When are you done? Right? This step is how you'll know when you stop and, again, determine that you reach your goal. That is critical. We need to have a date of when we're going to finish this project. Business case. Cost to complete the project. It always involves cost. What are the benefits? If we complete this project, how can the company benefit from it? Let's use what costs, again, and expected benefits to calculate the net return. We don't want to be maybe spending more, not even gaining that money back. So there has to be a break-even point, and then what is our confidence level on that one, and how sure are we that by implementing this, we're going to have an improvement and it's going to gain, the company is going to gain from it. Proper root cause analysis. What is the root cause in the current state, current problem? Do we know that? What kind of tools do we use? Let's separate symptoms and opinions. Again, symptoms and opinions. Again, that's just tribal knowledge. That's not real. That's not the real root cause. And that's the reason why we always go back over and over again to resolving the problems. Let's consider which techniques will be the most useful in gaining the right insight. What's the right root cause? Identifying additional tests, and let's summarize those findings visually. We may come up with multiple root causes, but when we come up with those ones, let's just make sure we come up with the real ones that has the biggest impact to the problems or the opportunity. So it involves the investigation of the current condition until the root cause of the problem is identified. Sometimes even just asking 5 whys, you could come up with the root cause, or if not, cause and effects metrics, or using Pareto charts, for example. Why do we need root cause analysis? Just so we could avoid jumping to conclusions, avoid those band-aid solutions. What are the proper countermeasures? And make sure those ones have lasting effect, right, that truly eliminates the problem. Symptoms are something that we just see, right? The root causes are the ones that we don't see. Right, those in this case, on this example here, on a tree, symptoms are what you see above it, and the roots are the ones that we really need to care about. Then you'll have the countermeasure sections. What can we term as improvements? What are the countermeasures? What are the action lists for tackling that problem? What can we do to make sure we eliminate that problem? So the early ones, the early versions of those countermeasures, maybe we'll put those ones on action plans that who'll do what, by when, and where. That's really important here. We need to assign responsibilities and we need to have targets. We have to have dates. The impact section is tie confirmation directly to the target conditions. What are the target conditions? We need to have 80% on-time delivery, for example, or 100% on-time delivery. Define 2 to 5 key performance indicators. There's always an issue whenever you only look at one KPI, for example. For example, if you're just looking at, I want to improve production. If you just improve production, but then again, your quality suffers, then that's the wrong way of doing it. Because that's the reason why you need more than one KPI. Because I can always stop quality issues at the moment if I just say I'll stop production. So how do we weigh the effectiveness of the countermeasures? Can we do it one by one? Yeah, you do it one by one if possible. Let's plan in advance that we need to collect all the data. Let's identify who will help collect the data and how frequently. So, and act on that. Some performance indicators, some examples, right? Not what kind of primary measures of success. Okay, we will achieve 90% productivity. How are we going to measure that 90% productivity? How are we going to track that? What are those targets for measures? I want a 90% productivity, but at the same time, I still want 1% quality issues or even 0. What defects will you be tracking? Right? I don't want to be improving productivity and adding a lot more defects. So again, those are the other KPIs or the other targets that we need to measure. Do we have leading and lagging indicators, especially leading indicators, right? Because it's too late if you look at lagging indicators, leading. But it's also important to have both. Productivity is a lagging indicator, but what contributes to that? And we need to follow up. How do we communicate the new process? How do we train people? Who's going to be monitoring the process? What metrics do we measure for ongoing performance? Who will be doing all this? And again, the best thing to do is let's celebrate when we do this, share the wealth, right? Okay, share it with everyone what the improvements are. And as much as possible, if it could be implemented in other departments, let's do it. So to summarize, the A3 provides us with a tool that keeps us focused on solving the right issues, the right problems, while making it visible for the team and the whole organization. Let's publish these ones. And always a team loves this approach because, again, it's one-stop shop. It's in one page, one piece of paper, and they understand what the initiatives and how are we progressing towards our goals. Any comments?
Yeah, Edward, thanks for the presentation. I do have a question that maybe you can answer with your experience. Do you have a feeling as to what works better in terms of paper versus electronic A3s? Because I imagine, and you mentioned this a few times, you have to keep it live and you have to put it in a place that people can see it. But I know there's sometimes a pushback on paper. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it both ways. Electronics always is best, right? But again, not everyone has that capability. So we could just use a piece of paper. But again, it's how do we keep that? How do we keep those documents? That's the case here, right? And how do we share it with somebody else? That's why electronics is always better if we had the capability of doing so.
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much for joining. And again, if you have questions, and you could always you could always contact me if you need additional information. Thank you.